Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is the show where we take a whole stack of sources, figure out what really matters, and give you the shortcut to, while being the most informed person in the room.
And this week, we are going to a place that, honestly, almost defies a simple description. It's a place that asks for more than just your passport and your luggage. It kind of demands some emotional preparation, too.
That's a great way to put it. We are focusing entirely on Vietnam's Con Dao archipelago. It's a chain of, 16 mountainous islands
Right.
way out in the South China Sea.
Exactly. And if you just look at, the travel brochures or Instagram, you see this absolute paradise. I mean, golden sand beaches, some of the best diving in Vietnam, lush, untouched rainforests, pure tranquility.
But then you look at the history books.
Right. And you see something completely different. You see one of the most infamous, most brutal prison complexes in all of Southeast Asia, a place literally known as hell on earth for over 100 years.
And that, right there, that profound conflict is what this deep dive's all about. How do you even begin to reconcile those two realities? I mean, how do you square spending, say, $800 a night at this stunning eco-resort?
A place where celebrities have stayed.
Yeah, exactly. How do you square that with standing inside a tiny concrete cell known as a tiger cage, where, political prisoners suffered just unimaginable horror for decades?
You can't just ignore it. The friction between that past and this beautiful present is precisely what makes Con Dao, I think, one of the most compelling, most important places you could possibly visit right now.
It's definitely not a casual trip. It's not a fly and flop beach vacation.
Yeah.
Con Dao, it demands effort, logistically to even get there, but also, spiritually.
Right. So our mission today is to give you that complete framework. We're going to cover the nuts and bolts of travel, which are not straightforward. We'll get into the complexities of where to stay, what to eat, and most importantly, we're going to give you the historical and ecological context you need to truly understand this place.
And by the end of this conversation, you're going to know exactly what kind of effort it takes, what kind of profound experiences are waiting for you, and you'll be able to decide if this really off-the-beaten-path destination is right for the kind of journey you're looking for. One that's both beautiful and deeply reflective.
So let's start with that first big hurdle, the one that stops a lot of people right away, just navigating this remote archipelago.
Okay, let's unpack it.
Yeah.
Getting there. Con Dao's remoteness is its biggest blessing and its biggest curse, right?
Absolutely. It's what has preserved its incredible natural state, but it makes access, genuinely difficult. You really have two main options, and they are polar opposites, sky or sea.
So speed and expense versus budget and potential adventure or misadventure.
That's a good way to frame it. Let's start with the sky option. You're flying into Con Dao Airport, code VCS. On a map, it looks like a simple 50-minute hop from Ho Chi Minh City. But it's not that simple.
Why not? What's the catch?
The catch is the airport itself. The airstrip is tiny. It's sandwiched between these steep mountains on one side and the open ocean on the other. And because of that, there are just severe limitations on the kinds of planes that can safely land there.
So no big jets. You're not getting an Airbus A320 in there.
No way. You're talking about smaller turboprop planes like the ATR-72. And this immediately creates a huge supply and demand problem. There are only a couple of airlines that can even operate the route, usually Vietnam Airlines and Bamboo Airways.
Okay, so a limited number of carriers and smaller planes. I can already see where this is going for the traveler's wallet.
Oh, yeah. It has a direct and pretty painful consequence. You can forget about budget carriers. These routes are considered premium. We're talking ticket prices that are easily 3, maybe 4 times higher than a flight of a similar distance on the mainland. A round trip can easily cost you a few hundred US dollars per person.
Wow. So that's that paradise tax we were talking about. And you're paying it before you even set foot on the island.
You are. And that's just the first problem with flying. The second major issue, which is tied directly to that geography we mentioned, is reliability.
The weather.
The weather. The airport is completely exposed to the elements. High winds whooping in off the South China Sea are a very common thing, and those winds create these dangerous cross currents across that short runway.
So flights get canceled a lot.
A lot. The safety standards are, thankfully, incredibly high. But that means flights are notorious for long delays, sometimes being diverted or just being canceled outright for the day. I've heard so many stories of people just stuck at the airport in Ho Chi Minh City for hours and hours, only to be told to come back tomorrow.
So if you do decide to fly, if you're willing to pay that premium, What is the single most critical piece of advice you need to follow?
Build in a buffer day. I can't stress this enough, especially on your way out. If you are flying from Con Dao back to the mainland to catch a tight international connection home, you are taking a huge gamble.
You're betting against the weather, basically.
You really are. The sources are absolutely unanimous on this. Schedule a full day of slack. Stay a night in Ho Chi Minh City before your flight home. Just treat that Con Dao flight as if it's inherently unreliable. Assume it will be delayed. That way, if it's on time, it's a bonus, and if it's not, your whole trip isn't ruined.
That is a fantastic piece of operational intel. Okay, so that's the expensive, fast, but risky option. Now let's talk about the alternative, the sea route, the fast ferry.
Right, this is the budget-conscious traveler's choice. You're mainly leaving from one of two ports. The first is Vung Tau, which is a couple of hours' drive from Ho Chi Minh City.
Okay, so that adds another leg to the journey.
It does. Or you can leave from Soc Trang, which is a great option if you're already down in the Mekong Delta region exploring. The journey time itself is significant. You're looking at somewhere between 3 and 4 hours on the water.
3 to 4 hours versus 50 minutes in the air. The trade-off is pretty stark right there. Time for money. But what's the actual experience of being on that ferry like?
Well, it is completely 100% dependent on the sea state. On a calm day, it's genuinely epic. You feel a real sense of adventure, crossing the open ocean. And the approach to the islands is just breathtaking. Watching these jagged, jungle-covered mountains just rise dramatically out of the sea, it reinforces how remote this place truly is.
It sounds beautiful, but I sense a big but coming.
A very big but. Because if the sea is even moderately rough, what you thought was a scenic boat trip turns into a 4-hour maritime endurance test.
Oh, no.
I'm not exaggerating. These ships are modern, but they get tossed around. It feels less like a boat and more like a continuous rolling roller coaster. The sources are so blunt about this. If you have even the slightest tendency towards motion sickness, take the strongest medication you can find and take it well before you get on board.
Don't be a hero.
Do not be a hero. Don't rely on, ginger candy or just staring at the horizon. It will not be enough. Be prepared.
I wonder about the practicalities of booking a ticket. I'm guessing you can't just wander down to the port and buy one on the day.
No, absolutely not. Especially during peak season, on weekends, or during Vietnamese holidays, the tickets sell out, sometimes days in advance. You have to book online. The main operators are companies like Superdong or Con Dao Express.
And is there a pro tip for booking, something that makes the journey a little better?
Yes. There's a small upgrade that makes a huge difference. Pay the extra few dollars for the VIP seats.
Why is that worth it on a 4-hour trip?
It's all about space and position. The VIP seats are usually at the front of the boat, which gives you a better view, way more legroom, and this is the critical part, sometimes you feel the motion a little less acutely up at the bow compared to being crammed in the middle or the back.
So it's an investment in minimizing potential misery.
Exactly. It's well worth it.
Yeah.
So to sum up this whole first challenge, Con Dao basically acts as a filter. If you value speed and convenience above all, get ready to pay a big premium and risk major delays. If you're on a budget and have the time, the ferry is great, but you have to respect the ocean and maybe medicate accordingly.
The choice you make really defines the start of your whole journey.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've hypothetically made it to the island. Let's talk about where you're going to stay, because the contrast here is just the ultimate expression of the island's dual personality.
It really is. And the price points tell the story immediately. You have to start with what I call the elephant on the beach, the Six Senses Con Dao. It basically sets the standard for ultra-luxury, not just on the island, but in all of Vietnam.
We're talking astronomical prices here. What does a starting price look like?
You're looking at a starting price of around 700, maybe 800 US dollars a night for their most basic villa. And it goes up, very quickly from there for multi-bedroom units. So this is a very, very specialized kind of travel.
And it's famous, right? Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt stayed there. But beyond the celebrity appeal, what actually justifies that kind of price tag?
What are you getting? It's really about the entire philosophy of the place. It's an architectural masterpiece, but it's built on a foundation of sustainability and seclusion. The design is often called rustic chic, and it's built almost entirely from reclaimed and locally sourced wood.
So it blends into the environment.
It really does. These aren't just concrete boxes. They're stunning, open-air wooden villas, and nearly every single one has its own private infinity pool that looks out over this perfect, crescent-shaped private beach. The entire focus is on creating a deliberate, total sense of escape.
So they're selling privacy and a very conscious, eco-friendly footprint. You're eating organic vegetables grown in their own garden. There's a huge focus on their award-winning spa.
The experience is flawless, if that is what you were looking for. It's designed to be a self-contained bubble of perfection. It's the ultimate honeymoon spot or, a once-in-a-lifetime trip where budget is not a concern.
But this brings us to a really critical point, doesn't it? Here you have what is arguably the most exclusive, escapist, high-end sanctuary in the entire region. And it's located just miles, sometimes just down the road, from sites of some of the deepest suffering in modern Vietnamese history.
It's a fundamental question.
Does a place like the Six Senses risk, I don't know, sanitizing or encouraging people to ignore that historical context?
That is a question you have to ask with any kind of high-end travel in a historically sensitive place. The sources don't really give a direct answer, but they strongly suggest that the responsibility falls on the traveler to bridge that gap themselves. The resort offers pure escapism, but the island demands historical engagement.
So if you go there and you just stay by your private pool, you're kind of missing the entire point of being on Con Dao.
You are. You're missing the soul of the place. The luxury is there, but you, the traveler, have the responsibility to step outside that bubble and seek out the local context. That's true no matter where you stay.
That's a great point. Okay, so let's pivot back to planet Earth and talk about the options for the vast majority of travelers who can't justify that price point.
Right. And the good news is the mid-range in Con Dao is exceptionally good. You're looking at some beautiful resorts and villas that offer fantastic amenities, great pools, lovely service, beautiful gardens for a much more manageable $150 to $300 a night.
What are some of the standout names?
The Pulo Condor Boutique Resort and Spa gets mentioned all the time.
Oh,
It
yeah.
has this really beautiful French colonial architectural style. It's set in these lush, serene gardens, so it feels very private and tranquil.
So that's for someone looking for seclusion, but on a more realistic budget.
Exactly. But if you're someone who prioritizes convenience and being close to the action, then the Secret Con Dao is a fantastic choice. It's very modern, and its location is its best asset. It's right in Town.
So you can walk to the historical sites, the market, the restaurants.
Precisely. So the mid-range traveler gets a clear choice. Do you want a secluded resort experience just outside of town? Or do you want the convenience of being right in the heart of things? Both are great options.
And then there's the third category,
Yeah.
the true local experience, the budget-friendly choice that gives you the deepest cultural immersion.
And this is where we talk about the Nani, which are the local guest houses. These are almost all located in Son Town. And to really understand the contrast, an Hang Yi is usually a simple concrete building, often run by a family that lives on the ground floor and rents out rooms on the floors above.
So you're not getting a pool or a spa. You're trading those luxury amenities for proximity to real life.
You absolutely are. For maybe $30 to $50 a night, you get a clean, functional room. It'll have air conditioning, a private bathroom. But the moment you step outside, you're on the street, you hear the motorbikes, you hear the neighbors chatting, you smell the food from the morning market. It's a central, no frills, but totally immersive experience.
And that choice of accommodation seclusion versus immersion is so critical. It will dramatically shape how you connect with the history and the social fabric of Con Dao.
It really will. Now, speaking of immersion, let's move on to the food. For an island this remote, it has to rely on the bounty of the sea, and Con Dao definitely does.
Yeah, the food scene here isn't about, trendy fusion restaurants or Michelin stars. It's defined by two things: incredible freshness and beautiful simplicity. And all the action happens at night along the main street and the market in Con Town.
And it is a visual spectacle. When you walk down that street, you don't really see menus. What you see are these huge bubbling water tanks filled with live fish. I mean, massive groupers, barracuda, and next to them are baskets just overflowing with giant tiger prawns, all different kinds of clams and sea snails, and of course the island's signature crabs.
The whole process of ordering is so direct, it's almost primal.
It is. You point, you weigh, you choose your destiny. You point at a big grouper, and then you immediately decide how it's going to be cooked. Do you want it steamed whole with fragrant ginger and scallions?
Which is delicious.
So good. Or do you want it grilled over hot charcoal with just salt, chili, and lime? Or maybe dropped into a savory hot pot broth with a bunch of local vegetables? The whole point is that the preparation is minimal because you want the quality of that seafood to just shine.
But beyond just the general grilled fish, which is amazing, the sources point to some really specific, essential local specialties, things you really have to try to get the island's unique flavor. We have to start with the nut that is literally everywhere. Hot bang.
The tropical almond nut.
Hmm.
The hot bang trees are just ubiquitous across the island. They provide all this vital shade, and the nuts themselves are a central part of the local snack economy. You'll see vendors sitting on the roadside roasting them over small fires, and the air just fills with this rich, toasty, inviting smell.
What's the flavor like? Is it like a regular almond?
It's different. It's a bit more, I would say, earthy. But when they roast it, it brings out this wonderful, rich, buttery texture, and they serve it two ways. Either lightly salted, which is just savory perfection, or caramelized with a super thin, crackly layer of sugar, which gives it this amazing sweet crunch. It's the perfect souvenir and the best thing to have with a cold beer in the evening.
Okay, my mouth is watering. Next up, a true delicacy. Something that really speaks to the richness of the ocean here. Chow num, sea urchin porridge.
This is a must-try if you are an adventurous eater. So chow is a savory rice porridge, kind of like congee. It's a staple comfort food. But the num, the sea urchin, is the star. They take the fresh sea urchin and mix it right into the hot, creamy rice.
And what does that do to the flavor? I've had sea urchin as sushi, but never cooked in something.
It completely transforms the dish. It imparts this incredible, complex flavor. You get this deep, briny, oceanic taste, but it also has this underlying sweetness and a kind of creamy, luxurious texture that melts into the porridge. It's just unbelievably rich and comforting. It's the taste of the Con Dao Sea in a bowl.
Wow. Okay, and finally, there's a crab that's as beautiful as it is delicious. Kwame Trung.
The moon crab. And it's named for these very distinct, beautiful circular spots on its shell that look like a full moon. They are a really prized local delicacy because the meat is known for being consistently firmer and sweeter than almost any other crab you'll find in the region.
And how do they prepare it?
Simplicity is key, usually just steamed whole and served with a simple dipping sauce of salt, pepper, chili, and lime. You don't want to do anything to mask the natural sweetness of that meat.
Okay, we need to add a little financial note here. We talked about how island life means things can be more expensive. How does that play out when you're ordering seafood at the market?
It means that while the value is still incredible compared to what you'd pay in the West, you have to be aware of dynamic pricing. Seafood is almost always priced by weight, and depending on what was caught that day, the prices can change a lot. A big grouper might be much more expensive one day than the next.
So the pro tip is, what, confirm the price before they cook the fish?
Absolutely. Just confirm the weight and the final price before it goes on the grill. It's not usually someone trying to rip you off. It's just how business works with high-value, perishable goods. A quick, polite confirmation protects your budget and prevents any awkward surprises when the bill comes.
Trust the freshness, but clarify the cost. A good rule for travel in general.
For sure. So we've talked about what nourishes the body. Now we have to turn to what nourishes and maybe what really challenges the soul.
Yeah.
We have to get into the real core of Con Dao, this profound duality where the darkness of the past and the light of the present collide.
And we should say, we're approaching this next part with a lot of seriousness. The history of Con Dao is not entertainment. It's a profound national scar for Vietnam.
It is. This was the main political prison system for all of Indochina for more than a century. It started with the French colonists and was then taken over and used by the American-backed South Vietnamese government.
That timeline is so important. It wasn't a single event. It was a sustained, institutionalized system of brutality that lasted for generations. That name, Devil's Island, was earned through decades of documented suffering.
So the essential, non-negotiable visit for any traveler is the Con Dao prison complex. You buy a single ticket, and it gets you into this whole sprawling network of sites. And the atmosphere, the second you walk in, is just immediately chilling. It's heavy.
And the most infamous, most harrowing part of that complex is the system of tiger cages. We really need to break down the differences between the types of cages, because their design tells you so much about the intent behind the cruelty.
Let's start with the original French cages. These were often outdoor pits open to the sky, which is why they were sometimes called sun cages. Prisoners were crammed in, exposed to the relentless tropical sun, the torrential monsoon rains. The brutality was about exposure, deprivation, and collective punishment.
But the cruelty evolved. When the French left, the American-backed regime didn't just use the old system, they enhanced it. They built new cages that were arguably even more psychologically devastating.
The American cages, which were famously exposed to the world by journalist Don Luce in 1970, were different. These were tiny, low-ceilinged concrete cells. They were designed for near-total sensory deprivation. Prisoners were shackled to the floor in pitch darkness, often unable to even sit up or stand fully. The intent was to break their will, their spirit, their very identity through isolation and chronic physical stress.
And the prison complex today uses these very stark, very realistic mannequins to reenact the torture and the conditions. It's not sensationalized. It's designed to force you, the visitor, to bear witness to what happened there. It is a painful but absolutely necessary history lesson.
And moving from those cells to the nearby Hangduong Cemetery is just essential for emotional context. This is maybe the most sacred revolutionary site in all of Vietnam. It's the final resting place for over 20,000 prisoners who died on the island. Most of them are in unmarked mass graves. It just gives you a sense of the sheer scale of the sacrifice.
And within this huge cemetery, there is one grave that has become this incredible focal point for national identity and spirituality, the grave of Vo Thi Sao.
Her story is incredible. Vo Thi Sao was a young revolutionary who was executed by the French in 1952. She was only 19 years old. But she is so much more than a historical figure now. She's a national martyr, a powerful symbol of defiance. The story is that she refused to kneel for her execution and sang the national anthem as they shot her. Her grave is a site of pilgrimage.
And that pilgrimage leads to this really unique cultural ritual that completely defines the atmosphere of Con Town after dark, the night visit to the cemetery.
This is one of the most moving cultural experiences you can have in Vietnam. There's a local belief that Vo Thi Sao's spirit is most potent, most accessible, late at night, usually between 10 p.m. and midnight. And so every night, droves of people, locals and Vietnamese visitors from the mainland, go to her grave. They burn incense, they pray, and they bring very specific offerings.
Let's talk about those offerings because the symbolism is so powerful. They bring things like combs, mirrors, lipstick, white flowers.
These are symbolic gifts of her stolen youth. By offering a comb or a mirror, the pilgrims are acknowledging that she was a young woman whose life, whose potential for beauty and a normal life was violently taken from her. It's this profoundly intimate act of remembrance. It goes beyond politics. It's a spiritual honoring of a life cut short.
So the advice for anyone visiting is clear. Go to the cemetery during the day to understand the history and the scale, but then you have to go back at night to witness this powerful living tradition of reverence. It gives you such a deep insight into modern Vietnamese spirituality.
And what's so fascinating is the immediate contrast. You leave this place of profound historical weight and sorrow, and you step right back out into this staggering natural beauty. The island's present almost feels like a counterbalance, maybe even a form of healing for its past.
And that pristine nature is no accident. It's fiercely protected. Con Dao is a designated national park and, crucially, a marine protected area, or MPA.
That MPA status is everything. It's why the marine environment here is so exceptional. While other parts of Vietnam's coast have really suffered from overfishing and coastal development, the water around Con Dao is often incredibly clear, and the coral systems are healthy and robust. For anyone who likes to dive or snorkel, this is critical.
What kind of things can you expect to see underwater that justifies this claim that it's the best diving in Vietnam?
Because of the conservation, you can see key species that have vanished elsewhere. Divers often report sightings of dugongs, which are these shy, large marine mammals, kind of like a manatee. They're very rare now in Southeast Asia. You also see these huge, healthy gardens of staghorn and plate coral, which are the building blocks of a healthy reef. The sheer biodiversity is just on another level.
Okay, so the underwater world is pristine. What about above the water? The beaches?
The showstopper, the one everyone talks about, is Dam Trout Beach. It's this gorgeous golden cove, but it's famous for one very specific, very surreal reason: its proximity to the airport runway.
This is the place where you get that iconic photo.
It is. You're just lying there on this perfect, quiet beach, and then suddenly you hear this roar, and a passenger plane just screams right over your head on its final approach to land. It's this thrilling, bizarre moment of modern machinery invading this natural paradise, and then just as quickly it's gone, and it's quiet again.
And there are other quieter beaches too, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's Naya Beach, which has this fascinating rhythm. It only fully appears at low tide. When the tide comes in, the beach just vanishes. And then On High Beach is another lovely, long, calm stretch that's really convenient to Con Town.
But the one natural experience that truly connects everything, that connects the light of the present with the weight of the past, has to be the sea turtles.
Without a doubt. The island chain, and especially a smaller island called beckon, is a critical nesting ground for endangered green and hawksbill turtles. The nesting season is long, from about May to October, and the national park runs these essential, very tightly controlled tours to let people witness this ancient ritual.
And you mentioned this is an overnight tour, so this is not a luxury experience. You're sleeping in very basic ranger station accommodation, but the reward is immense.
It is a profound, life-affirming reward. In the middle of the night, a ranger will wake you up. You walk down to the beach in near total darkness, using only a faint red light so you don't disturb the turtles. And you might get to witness a massive mother turtle who can weigh hundreds of pounds, silently digging her nest in the sand and laying her eggs.
To be a quiet, respectful witness to such a primal, vulnerable act of nature must be just deeply moving.
It is, and then the experience comes full circle the next morning. Because, if you're lucky with the timing, you get to participate in the release of the newly hatched baby turtles. You get to hold this tiny, frantically energetic little creature in the palm of your hand for just a second. You place it on the sand, and you just watch as it instinctively scrambles towards the sound of the ocean, driven by millions of years of programming.
And that moment, watching new life struggle towards the water, after you've spent the day contemplating the sheer scale of death in the prisons, that is the ultimate crystallization of what Con Dao is. You cannot understand this place without feeling both that historical darkness and this incredible, life-giving natural light.
The contrast isn't jarring, it's clarifying. It helps you understand that this island has somehow absorbed both all of that suffering and all of this healing.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's get into some really practical advice. For anyone who is now convinced they have to go, what are the common mistakes or pitfalls they need to avoid?
Great question. Let's start with what to skip. First, skip any expectation of late-night parties or a big nightlife scene. Con Dao is quiet, deeply quiet. If your idea of a perfect beach vacation involves DJs, fire dancers, and beach clubs, you're going to be so disappointed.
There are a few lovely little bars and cafes in Con Town, right? Good for a quiet beer and watching the sunset. But things wind down very early. The soundtrack of the island after 9 p.m. is the wind, the waves, and the cicadas. It encourages reflection, not revelry.
Exactly. The second thing, and this is a major safety point, think twice, maybe 3 times, before you rent a motorbike. Unless you are a highly confident, very experienced rider.
That's a serious warning. Motorbikes are the standard way to get around in most of Southeast Asia. Why is it so different here?
It's the geography again. The coastal roads that lead to the most beautiful remote beaches, like the road out to Dam Trow, are deceptively challenging. You have these very sudden, steep climbs, followed by sharp descents with dangerous hairpin turns. And on top of that, the pavement can be really imperfect. You'll hit patches of sand, gravel, or bits that have been washed out.
And I'm guessing there's not a lot of infrastructure like guardrails.
Minimal guardrails and almost no streetlights once you leave the main town. So an inexperienced rider who is, distracted by the beautiful scenery instead of focusing completely on the road is risking a very serious accident. For safety and just for your own relaxation, we strongly recommend hiring a taxi or negotiating a day rate with a local driver.
That seems like a smart trade-off. Pay a bit more for a driver, and you can actually enjoy the views instead of worrying about going over a cliff.
Exactly. And the final, most critical piece of advice: skip the rush. You cannot do Con Dao in a weekend trip. It just doesn't work.
We said earlier that 4 full days is the absolute minimum. Why is rushing so bad for the experience here?
It's because of the emotional processing time you need. You are dealing with sites of profound historical trauma right next to moments of intense natural beauty. If you try to rush from a chilling prison cell to a quick swim in the ocean and then race back to the airport to try and catch an unreliable flight, the whole thing just becomes jarring. It feels disrespectful to the history, and it's ultimately just unsatisfying for you.
You need that downtime.
Yeah.
Time to just sit quietly by the sea after you've been to the cemetery and just
Yeah.
think. The island really rewards the traveler who slows down and lets that solemn, quiet atmosphere sink in.
So, if you handle the logistics right, you choose your accommodation thoughtfully, you respect the slow pace, and you give yourself time to reflect, what's the ultimate vibe? What's the feeling you take away from Con Dao?
I think the key words are raw, windswept, and untamed. The sources all describe it as being much less polished, less commercialized than other popular Vietnamese islands like Phu Quoc. It feels wilder.
And there's that palpable sense of melancholy that hangs in the air, especially in Con Town. The history isn't just in the past. It feels like a tangible, silent presence. And the quietness of the town encourages that feeling. The main sounds are natural sounds, not the noise of commerce.
There was one anecdote that I thought just perfectly encapsulated this whole contrast. It describes sitting on the seafront wall at dusk, and in front of you, you're watching this completely normal, peaceful scene of modern life. Kids are practicing a dance routine, an old man is flying a kite.
A beautiful everyday scene.
Totally normal. But then you look over your shoulder, and looming right behind you are the formidable old French colonial prison administration buildings.
That image of normal life just carrying on, finding its own peace right in the immovable shadow of historical horror that defines the entire atmosphere. It elevates the trip. It's not just a holiday, it feels important, like you're bearing witness to resilience.
A journey to Con Dao is enriching. It's not just relaxing. It asks more of you. It asks for your engagement, your thoughtfulness. But the reward for that is a travel experience that really makes you think and reflect.
Which brings us to the moment of synthesis. We've covered all the trade-offs, the difficulty and the cost of the journey, that philosophical gap between ultra-luxury and simple local life, the incredible seafood, and of course that powerful defining contrast between the brutal history and the natural sanctuary.
So the final question, is Con Dao worth it? Is it worth the effort, the expense, and the emotional commitment?
Based on everything we've synthesized, the answer is a resounding 100% yes. But, and this is a big but only for a specific kind of traveler, this island is for you if you are looking for a profound, thought-provoking journey, not just a passive vacation.
If you're interested in history, even when it's dark and difficult.
Exactly. And if you appreciate raw, quiet tranquility over crowds, parties, and convenience. If that describes you, if you prioritize meaningful engagement over easy comfort, then Con Dao will likely be one of the most memorable and significant travel experiences of your entire life.
It asks for more, and in return, it gives you so much more.
Its greatest value is in its complexity. The friction, that tension between the past and the present, is the source of its unique power. It forces you to feel the weight of history and the preciousness of nature at the same time.
I just keep coming back to that profound emotional whiplash. The idea of witnessing tiny baby turtles scrambling toward the life-giving ocean on the same day that you stood in a cramped, dark cell designed for death. That kind of experience doesn't just entertain you, it rewires your brain and your heart. It's a place you feel deeply. And for that reason alone, it is worth every bit of effort.
It is. And that brings us to our final provocative thought. Something for you to mull over as you think about your own deep dive into these islands.
Ponder that living, active spiritual tradition we talked about. The ritual of visiting the martyr Voti Sao's grave between 10 p.m. and midnight and leaving these small tokens of lost youth and beauty. And ask yourself this. How does that deep, ongoing, almost religious reverence for the sacrifices of the past actively shape and dictate the peaceful, tranquil, and quiet atmosphere of the town today?
It suggests the history isn't just a memory, it's a living force that actively cultivates the present environment. Is it the island's profound sorrow that mandates its contemporary peace? That's the quiet power of Con Dao.
Until next time, when we tackle another complex topic, we hope this deep dive has inspired you to seek out those places that both challenge and reward you.